Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I thought I'd give you guys a bit of a look at the build that I've been playing recently on stream, and that is Fire Blade Vortex. A lot of people have been asking me how it works, kind of like what's the go with it, and you know, what might be required for playing it. So I thought I'd do a bit of a video kind of explaining some things, and if you guys really like the build, I can do a full guide for you guys, and you guys can kind of build it up yourself as well. But today's video just going to be scratching the surface and kind of giving you guys an idea of how it works. So without further ado, let's get into what we're seeing here. So the purpose of this character is to absolutely destroy T16 maps, specifically Delirium maps. So you can do 100% Delirium if you've got really good gear. You can do the Mirror Delirium with medium gear, and you know, you can pretty much do any sort of mapping content on this character. You can kill the Conquerors effortlessly, and you can even take down Cyrus as long as you've got the mechanics down pat. So it's a pretty good all-rounder build. About the only thing it can't do is probably deep delving, but really, I mean, how many builds can actually do that, right? So it's a pretty good build. If you're looking for a catch-all build, this is definitely one that I consider picking up. As long as you're looking to invest in a build, it is definitely not a cheap build, but it is a really good one. And it definitely is kind of a good aspiration to reach for, I found, at least in my gameplay here. So now that we kind of understand what it's good for and you know, all that good stuff, let's talk about what we're actually seeing in the background here. So you can see that I've got a ring around me. That is the Blade Vortex. And it's very easy to keep up these days with the Unleash support, but we'll go into that a little bit later. What about those explosions? What are those explosions? So that is my chest piece, actually. It's called an explodey chest piece. That's what the community have dubbed it. And the build basically focuses on scaling the explodey chest piece to an extreme amount. So much so that when you kill a monster, it blows the monster up and kills all the monsters around that, and those monsters then in turn kill all the monsters around that. So you probably saw it with the Legion earlier. I killed one mob and it chain reacted the entire Legion and they all died. That is the point of the build, and that is what we're trying to do here. You can also see the fire there. That is just Herald of Ash, and it assists with that kind of chain reaction process, and it does look quite cool, doesn't it? So pretty cool indeed. And you'll see coming up here that we do also have the T16 Delirium boss. And another thing that this build really excels at is burst damage. You'll see that I'm also making use of Vile Blade Vortex as well as Vile Righteous Fire. With these two spells combined, you can almost triple your damage against bosses, and it is a very broken sight to behold when you pop both and the boss gets one shot. This is what allows the build to kill Conquerors effortlessly and also kill the bosses and stuff like Metamorphs with ease. So it's definitely a very good all-rounder. You'll see coming up here, I pop both of them. Bing, bang, boom, boss dead. So that's kind of that. Let's jump in game and I'll explain how the build works. So quickly, let's start with the main component of the build. That is the explodey chest. Blade Vortex might be the delivery method, but the end result is the explodey chest. And the line you're looking for here is enemies you kill explode, dealing 3% of their life as physical damage. So you might be thinking, 3%, that's not actually that much life, is it? Well, you would be right, but you can scale this with passives on the tree, with your gear, and with a ton of other things. Now, let's get into that now. So the first thing you're probably going to want to look at doing is scaling physical damage. So I have a node here. I mean, it doesn't have to be this node specifically, but you can get physical damage on the tree. There's quite a few nodes. There's one down here. You'll see this gives 20% increased physical damage. That is going to scale the explodey chest. And our goal is to get the explodey chest to the point where it does that 3% all the way up to a point where that 3% is actually one-shotting other monsters. And it's kind of making that really big chain reaction kind of process. And that's kind of the whole point of the build. And the reason we play Blade Vortex, in fact, is because the explodey chest piece is an AoE skill which is also physical. Now, Blade Vortex is also an AoE skill that is physical. So we can basically scale our main damage skill while also scaling the explodey chest at the same time, and they use the same mods. To my knowledge, there's actually not really any other skill that is as well suited as Blade Vortex to scaling and abusing the explodey chest. So that's why we went Blade Vortex. In addition to that, it is just a very good clearing skill. It's very fast. You can keep it on while you're running around. And you can basically just blow up everything like you guys saw in the video. So essentially, the exploded chest is the heart of the build. Blade Vortex is the thing that makes the exploded chest work, and we'll get into how we're scaling that now. So point number one, we are a Fire Blade Vortex character. And what I mean by that is that we're converting all of our physical damage from the chest piece and all of our physical damage from the Blade Vortex to fire damage. Now, why are we doing that? The reason we want to do that is because scaling physical damage alone is quite limiting. There's not too much physical damage on the tree. However, there is quite a lot more fire damage. You can get stuff like fire damage on rings, you can get fire damage on the tree, you can get fire damage in a lot of different places. In addition to that, you can also gain fire penetration, which is going to increase your damage even more. Physical penetration is a lot harder to come by and doesn't work quite the same. So fire penetration is essentially a more multiplier. So we can use things like this node here, which gives you fire penetration. Actually, it gives you extra fire. Sorry about that, guys. No, we can use the Wise Oak. This gives you fire penetration for sure. So that's very, very powerful. We can use stuff like curses, which give fire penetration. We can use, elemental weakness, all that good stuff. So you can stack up a ton of more damage multipliers on your elemental damage. In addition to that, because we're elemental, we can use stuff like elemental focus, and all that juicy good stuff, which is really, really powerful for multiplying your damage. Now, okay, so how are we converting all our damage to fire? In this specific version of the build, my version, we're using Avatar of Fire, which converts 50% of all your damage to fire, as well as a anointment on your amulet, which is Magmatic Strikes, which is an additional 20%. So currently we're at 70%. And then I use a Conversion Watcher's Eye, which is somewhere around here. It's over here, which does an additional 38. So we're actually over 100%, and that's why I have Anger on. So you can see here we have now 100% of our physical damage being converted to fire, which is pretty cool. We get all the benefits of fire penetration, we get all the increases of physical damage and fire damage, and we also get all the generic increases from stuff like AoE damage. So the point is here that you're very quickly starting to approach, like a ton of damage from the explodey chest. Maybe you have 100% increased fire, 100% increased fizz, now that's 9%. Maybe you have 100% pen, which is definitely realistic with a build like this, if you have both curses on. Now it's 18%, it kind of gets higher and higher and higher. Now, what takes this to the next level? Well, the thing that takes it to the next level is our Ascendancy. So the cool thing about the explodey chest is that it can deal critical strikes. Critical strikes obviously trigger critical strike multiplier. Critical strike multiplier can do up to 4 times damage. Now, what's the best crit ascendancy? It is the Assassin. The Assassin adds a base critical strike, which will go onto the explodey chest, and also gives you a ton of crit multi and some other cool stuff as well, like tons of movement speed and tons of other juicy bonuses. So it's super duper good, and it's going to make your explodey chest deal even more damage, which is exactly what we're looking for. We're aiming for that 100% where it chains the entire screen, which is super cool. Now, of course, because we are physical, we can also use really, really cool abilities like Herald of Ash. So Herald of Ash, you gain a percentage of your physical damage as additional fire on top of that. So it's another more multiplier to your explodey. So if you're doing 50% of your physical as additional fire, you get an additional 1.5% of the mob's life as fire damage just on top of that. And then again, that's multiplied by all of the modifiers that we were talking about before. And you can see again how we're getting so close. So what's really cool about Herald of Ash is that there's actually rings in the game which give increased Herald of Ash buff effect. So in total, you can get 120% with perfect rolls, which is crazy. So you can get pretty much over 30% of your physical damage as extra fire just off Herald of Ash. In addition to that, Herald of Ash has some pretty cool effects as well, and it's super duper cool. So now we've covered kind of like the explodey scaling and all that stuff like that. I want to get into another really cool part of the build, which is power charges. So another reason we went with Assassin is the power charge scaling. There's stuff like this up here, which gives you increased damage per power charge. So I think I have 10 right now. So that's 80% increased power charges. So 80% increased damage per when I'm at max power charge, and that again scales the explodey damage. So you're really racking it up here. It's pretty insane. In addition to that, With power charges, you can now use Badge of the Brotherhood. Because I have 10 power charges, Badge of the Brotherhood means I get 10 frenzy charges as long as I can generate them. And the cool thing about frenzy charges is they have a generic more multiplier on them. And that more multiplier is, you guessed it, it's affecting the explodey chest as well. So I guess it's just all coming together for the explodey chest. It's one-shotting everything at this point, and it's going to be completely insane. And don't even get me started on Headhunter. Headhunter also adds a ton of physical damage gained as extra elemental damage mods to your explodey chest, which makes it completely ridiculous and gives you the effect that you saw in the video behind you a second ago, and it's going to be really insane. So let's quickly talk a little bit more about power charges though. What makes these really over the top is cluster Joules. So you can come over here and we can look at one of these cluster Joules here. We have two things on the media cluster Joules that we're looking for. We're looking for towering threat and we're looking for vast power, mainly vast power. Now, what's so good about vast power? So let's take a quick look at this here. It says 3% increased area of effect per power charge. That is completely insane. So 3% times 10, that's 30%. And I have 4 of these cluster Joules. So that's 120% increased area of effect. And of course, that affects the exploded chest, as well as your Herald of Ash, as well as your Blade Vortex. So you can see that the synergies are completely insane. They're all just stacking up on top of each other. It's a very, very well-tuned build, and you really do just end up with an absolute abomination of a build, which just rips through everything with insane damage and efficiency. So that's kind of like the general gist of the build. You can also slot other cool things in, like a glorious vanity, and you can get some of your life as maximum energy shield. But in general, it's a very efficient build. My build isn't too min-maxed. You can really take it further. Like, you can get rid of the anointment and get a passive on the glorious vanity. You can use voices and take it to 6 towering threat vast power Joules, which is it's like 50% more AoE on top of that. Meaning, you know, you're gonna be killing things off in Africa. They're gonna be off in Africa, and your exploded chest is in like Australia, and it's like boom, and then everything dies in Africa. It's gonna be completely insane. You're already one-shotting legions. You're just gonna end up one-shotting the whole map. And it's pretty crazy. So that's kind of the general gist of the build. The build really is focused on scaling physical damage, and as a result of that, scaling the explosion chest. In terms of Blade Vortex in general, the reason it hasn't been so popular in past, like the year or two, is because it has been a little bit sluggish to play. Now, with the release of the popular Unleash gem, Blade Vortex is actually one of the best skills to play in my opinion, if you're looking for a pretty chilled out playstyle. A lot of people kind of said that Blade Vortex is really annoying to keep the stacks up. I was one of those people, but with Unleash, as well as an Unleash helmet, you can actually just get full Blade Vortex stacks in a matter of seconds. Like, I'm already up to 5 with 1 cast. I do another one, I'm up to 10. 2 casts. So it's really not too bad playing, and you can reach maximum stacks very, very quickly, and you can maintain them very, very quickly as well. So that's kind of been a bit of a preview of the guide, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you want to see the full guide, breaking down all the gear, the progression, kind of what you want to do, the stepping stones, order in which you get stuff, all that good stuff, let me know, maybe thumbs up the video, leave me a comment saying that you'd like to see it, and I can break it down for you guys, because this build is an absolute blast to play. I want to be playing it all league long, and it's definitely going to be really, really fun for heisting. So hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you guys on stream or in the next one. Cheers.